We are streaming.
Are you ready?
Yep.
Okay, we'd like to open and welcome everyone to another chapter of the police reform. We've got a draft plan out. We're accepting comments on that this evening. We would ask if you've signed up to comment that you turn your video on as you do so. And I'll turn that over to Sam Fields.
Thank you. I just wanted to go over kind of the highlights of what the draft plan has, just really quickly. We released it on Friday the 12th, and we thank you so much for being able to join us so we can hear from the public on the plan. One of our main focuses for the plan was mental health, after hearing from a lot of our committee and our residents on that, and we wanted to make sure we were able to improve on that. The Sheriff's Office over the next 3 years is committed to having all of its full-time deputies receive crisis intervention training. It's a very lengthy training, so it's going to take a few years to get through that. CIT trains officers on how to handle emotionally disturbed individuals in a variety of situations in the community. Another focus of mental health is a call diversion policy that's being put together by the Madison County Mental Health Department with our E911 Center, and that is set to begin in March 2021. The Sheriff's Office is also putting in the plan that they are looking into purchasing a new records management system. Our current system does document all of the demographic information. However, pulling that information for a report takes a lot of man hours. It doesn't compile those the way that it should. So that's something we're looking into. And the Sheriff's Office has amended its complaint process to include that the Criminal Justice Committee would get a monthly report on any complaints that come in and how they were handled and if they have been resolved. We'll turn it over now to County Administrator Mark Simone.
Thank you, Samantha. Thank you for everybody for being part of this public comment period tonight on the police reform plan submitted by Madison County for review to the public. Thank you, Samantha, and the sheriff, especially Samantha, has done a significant amount of work along with the task group on putting together this plan. A lot of it came out of recommendations, from the public. We had a lot of good comments from the public in regards to the plan. So I'm going to open up public comment period, and we had 3 people that were signed up to speak. But if there's other folks that would like to speak, we can have them have some time as well. I had 3 people signed up. The 3 names I had were Julie Carlson, John Bailey, and Debbie Kilman. So I'll start with the folks that are here that I see. Julie, if you want to go first. And we have 3 minutes for public comment period on the plan, and then we'll go to the next person. So Julie, you can go ahead.
Sure, thanks. So I just want to thank everybody who's been involved in this process, not just the residents of Madison County, but all of the public servants who have been charged to look at police reform. I know it's been a lot of work. I know there's a lot of pressure on the county in regard to COVID-19 and living with the pandemic. And this has, been a big task. So thank you for the work that you've done. I really want to thank you, Samantha, for getting this report together. I know it took a lot of work. It was really informative. So thank you for that. A lot of the 13 pages would have been really, really helpful information to have had at the beginning of the process. I learned a lot about the work that the Sheriff's Office does, pre-Executive 203. And so it was really great that you included that. So I was some of the questions that we had that hadn't been answered were answered in this, in the reform. And I noticed that there are 3 reforms that were included or that were listed. I'm not sure how looking into something constitutes a policy change. There isn't really a promise behind that. And that's pretty different than saying that that's something that you're going to do. So data collection is extremely important. Being able to aggregate data by demographics and police engagement or law enforcement engagement is critical in being able to understand whether or not and to what extent racial inequities exist within policing. Unless we have an easy way to get this data, it will be impossible for law enforcement to examine what's going on within their department. And that being said, that this data is not collected currently, I would say that there's absolutely no way that the sheriff's office is able to determine the extent to which racial inequities within policing exist now. There are some indirect ways that we can do that, but that hasn't been part of the conversation on your end. And I also want to point out that, again, in the information that you've provided, there's been zero mention of racial inequities. That's the purpose behind Executive 203. Racial inequities, the existence of systemic racism. That's what Executive 203 is about. And its absence in anything that you have written is telling. And specifically the response of Chairman Becker and Sheriff Hood. Okay, in response to the concerns that have been raised by residents of the county in regard to the thin blue line flag, I think demonstrate the lack of willingness of, and even Sheriff Hood, you being on the phone right now while I'm talking about this, demonstrate a lack of willingness to really dive into racial inequities. And I hope that this is something that the Sheriff's Department is interested in looking at as a continued conversation, and that will be an explicit part of what the police reform plan will be. Thank you.
Julie. Thank you, Julie. John Bailey?
Yes, thank you.
I'd like to say one thing, Julie. I apologize. We had a really bad standoff last night till 5 o'clock this morning down in Hamilton. So occasionally I'll get calls that I have to answer. Some of them are regarding some things just short of life and death. So I apologize for that. It wasn't snubbing you, but when I'm expecting a call and it's something very important, you may not understand, but some things are very important. Okay, sorry about that.
I agree. Your job is really important, and I appreciate you doing your job. So don't get me wrong. It just, the timing of that was poor, and I appreciate your explanation. It makes a huge difference. So thank you for that.
Yeah.
Okay, John, you can go ahead.
Okay, thank you all. I commend the committee for their plan to include the crisis intervention team training of 40 hours for all full-time officers. Also, the expansion of the mobile crisis program. The 9/11 mental health diversion policy and the improved data collection are also very good additions. And I realize that many of these changes are going to require more funding. And I, as a resident of Madison County, I, for one, would promote funding these programs. However, right now, I have a few suggestions that, if incorporated, could make the plan more in line with the New York Police Reform and Reinvention Guidelines. The first is about the existing complaint process. Page 67 of the New York Police Reform Guide states that there should be an easy, accessible, well-publicized process for members of the public to report complaints about police misconduct. I submit that the county include a tab on their website for policing complaints. It should include the telephone number, the process steps, and an online form for submitting complaints about misconduct. Also, best practice would be to have the complaints accepted and processed through a different county department, such as the district attorney's office. Secondly, is the officer training. On pages 89 and 90 of the guide, it states that police departments should assess whether their training fosters adversarial relationships with their communities and should consider training that ensures alignment with community goals. Some training academies are not appropriate. Selecting a training company should involve the community. I propose the use of DART Academy not be used for cultural diversity, hate crimes, and anti-bias training. Another training organization that specializes in this type of training should be used, and the community should be involved in its selection. There's a lot more that could be said, but these simple additions to your plan could bring it closer to the intended purpose of the executive order. Even after this process is completed, the work of reform should be ongoing. And I just want to speak for a Hamilton Area Anti-Racism Coalition that we stand ready to work with the county to make Madison a safe place for all its residents. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Do I have Debbie Kilman on the, doesn't look like it, at least doesn't look like she's on. Does either Leslie or Chris or Liz or Kelly want to speak?
I just want to say, great job, Sheriff.
Anything else?
I would like to say that the lack of community here at this supposed public forum proves that it wasn't advertised enough. That I know that you said that the link on your website, it said the link to the Zoom meeting would be posted on the 17th, but when I looked for it tonight, it wasn't there. This is not a public comment period. Most of the people here are from the Hamilton Area Anti-Racism Coalition and the county, and that's not the public. That's not all inclusive of the public in Madison County, and we needed more time. You needed to get the word out better. So I would like to say that I know you're offering another public comment tomorrow. I do appreciate that you made 2 meetings this time, but they're too soon after the release of the draft plan. And if you actually want public comment and you want public input, you need to give room for that. And there wasn't enough room for that. So thanks.
Thank you, Chris. Liz, would you like to say anything? Or are you okay? Or Leslie?
I'm good. Thank you, Mark.
You're welcome, Liz.
I'm fine too. Thanks very much.
You're welcome. I think that's all we have then. On the point that Chris made, you know, I had a conversation with Julie about this yesterday. The plan was, you know, I say literally completed on Friday afternoon. We have a very strict deadline set by the state to get this plan done. I told Julie that I would say the same thing to anybody on the Zoom, anybody listening on YouTube. If there's more interest in another, you know, hearing, we would be more than willing to host something. People can submit written comments to the county by the first week of March. We have our board meeting on the 9th to adopt the plan. I think we're hoping to have our criminal justice committee meeting to review the comments from the public on either March 1st or 2nd. So if folks want to get comments into the county in writing by the 28th, that'd be great. And if there is people that, you know, are interested in doing another public hearing and because they couldn't make tonight or they can't make tomorrow, then please contact me, Mark Simone. You can call me at 366-3071 and we'd be happy to work something out.
Mark, is it possible for a committee member to say something?
Absolutely.
Oh, good.
Introduce yourself, Mr. Mascari.
I think I can do that. Good evening, everybody. I'm Bob Mascari, sometimes called the Chief Assistant District Attorney in Madison County. And what I wanted to say, particularly to the Hamilton Committee folks, is whether you believe it or not, and I hope you do, your comments are very much appreciated. They are listened to. I reviewed every page of the materials that you've submitted. But let me just tell you this, is helpful as your comments are, as absolutely sincere as all of you are, and it's greatly appreciated. It makes it a better community. I at least get the feeling when I hear you talking to us that you tell us something that, you know, in our heart, we already know. We know there's racism. That's not a secret. There's sexism. I grew up in an environment where I was sometimes not in anything like an African American, discriminated against because of my Italian last name. So we know it exists. But I think when you ask us to address this, we know what's going on in the community from our perspective and our involvement, but to just tell us that it's there and not come to us with any type of statistics or examples. I mean, the reality is we have a minuscule minority population in Madison County. And I would guess when I teach my students in college, I always tell them the most important color is green, because I think a lot of our problems are more economic based than they are race or preference or whatever based. That's just my opinion. So I would love to engage with you people. I would love to hear you tell me about the racism problem. And if this helps at all, I will tell you that I spend a significant amount of my time during every year interacting with police agencies about perceived personnel issues that they have. And you would be surprised at how many people find themselves no longer police officers in this county because of how they behave and interact with the public. And if we're missing some, that's a shame, but it's not something that's ever been ignored. But I do thank you for your participation. I think it's great. But I also think it would be even more persuasive if you could help us identify the problem if you feel we're missing it.
Thanks, Bob. Sheriff, you have anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I kind of echo Bob's words a little bit. You know, a lot of people come in here and some of the people seem very angry and upset and agitated. I get it. No one here likes racism. You know, I've been a police officer for 24 years in Syracuse. I've worked with hundreds of African-American men and women. I played college football. Half of our team was African-American. And there's nothing I want more than to do away with racism. So, you know, I see a lot of confrontation and some of the national narrative, you know, people kind of want to blame the police. And I get it. I mean, it's a highly in view job. You know, everything that we do is usually on camera. I get it. But I want everyone to know I'm totally against racism and I am totally for this. But we're being shut out of this whole thing by some of you people on this committee. And, you know, you might want to take a step back, look at it from afar. Why don't you include us in some of your dialogues and your discussion and maybe working together? You know, I can help you guys understand things and you guys can help me understand things, because when it comes down to it, it's all about perception. You know, it's all about what's in your brain and what life influences you've had in your lifetime. And a lot of this thing we can overcome just by, you know, communication and getting together and having a discussion. And we can't be angry about it. We have to sit down and be respectful towards one another so that people can understand what's going on. And I'm down with the program 100%. I'm going to do everything I can. Sam, I can't thank you enough for everything you've done. I know you had some criticisms here from some of the panel. I'm going to tell you, I know how hard you worked on this and how much I appreciate that. And moving forward, I think this is going to make a difference. We've had some great suggestions. I just don't want the animosity, you know, going back and forth. Let's try to work together if that's what you're all about. All right. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome. Yeah, I think, you know, we'd be open, and I know the sheriff would be open. I'd be open. You know, I know Bob and Bill from the DA's office, if, you know, folks from the Hamilton group or any group wants to sit down and have a discussion. I know that it's kind of tough. You know, it would be nicer if we were in an open meeting now and not on a Zoom and in a room together, you know, having a conversation.
So Mark, I talk with Major Pitkin. He's the state police commander all the time. And he told me, he's like, nobody's included us in this discussion. There's 5,000 troopers in New York State. Not one person has reached out to the state police because they weren't included in this plan. And Major Pitkin, you know, we pretty much came on together in years of being on the job. He's like, Todd, when you go to these meetings, I'd love to send somebody down there to talk, but nobody asks us, nobody wants any input from the police because they're kind of targeting the police. So just so you know, the major of the state police, who is in charge of 10 counties, would love to sit down and talk with some of you groups also. So I'll just put that out there. He's a great guy. You know, he's got a lot of great experience. He's a good man. So I'll throw that out there also. He feels he'd like to be included in the conversation, but the governor didn't include him in it, or any other state agency, SUNY Campus Police, NCON, Forest Rangers, any state agency didn't have to do this. So apparently there's no problems there, just with your local sheriffs and police, which, you know, we're accredited. So we do follow the rules also, just like the state police.
Yeah, it is unfortunate, Sheriff, that the state police were not allowed to be at the table.
Yeah, and he's upset about it. He wants to be included in some of these conversations, but we're not being included in them.
Yeah, I see just as many state police cars on the road in Madison County as I do sometimes with our deputy sheriff. So they're definitely a large part of our community policing, and especially our SUNY police and Morrisville, and dealing with a different population down there with the college students. So, but we're open to, you know, meetings with folks from Harker or any group as we look to try to, you know, pass this police reform process. You know, this has been a great process to go through. I think we've all learned a lot as members of the Madison County team. And I think that there's some really great things that are coming out of this police reform. And a lot of the suggestions I think that folks had tonight, we can definitely include. I'd take Julie's point very strongly about, you know, the piece, how we say we will look into the data collection. That's something we do need to make a commitment on. You know, it's the money issue is the problem. I think that's why we were a little softer on that, because the software packages are expensive, but we do need to have the data, because that will help us all to understand where there could be potential issues when we have the data to back it up, and we need to have that data to report out. So that's definitely something we can look to tweak, and John had some great suggestions as well. So this is not the final plan. This is a draft plan for comment, and we appreciate everybody's comments.
Yeah, Mark,
more comments tomorrow. And Pete, go ahead.
Mark, I just wanted to mention to John or Julie, you both mentioned the record management system, the RMS. We did, actually, the sheriff and undersheriff brought us that, I believe it was around 2 years ago, to the criminal justice system, our criminal justice public safety committee. At the same time, we were trying to upgrade the CAD system, the computer aided dispatch, which are total overall for the 911 center. We did not have the funding to do so, to look at the RMS, but they have identified that on their own is something that was needed. And then this year, of course, with the pandemic and the reduced, it didn't even come out. Everybody was cutting budgets, the sheriff as well. It is a financial matter. That is really in our wheelhouse as far as the committee and the supervisors look at finances, but that has been previously identified by the sheriff's department. They know what they want to work with, what they've seen and worked with in other agencies works well. That data is important to us and them. And again, that is a financial component and that we need to work on, see if we can get some grant funding. We will try to work on that, but we just prioritized with a computer aided dispatch. That was really the hub of the whole system. So that was a choice that we made. And we as supervisors bear that responsibility. And I just want to make sure the point is made that the sheriff and undersheriff brought that to us over 2 years ago. And they know, they can see the importance of that themselves. And I want to echo what, same thing with everybody here included. Appreciate Bob's input, the sheriff, but circle back to Sam once more. She's done a great job, and I know that I can speak that family has spoken about how great Sam is making phone calls individually to COVID appointments and COVID messaging. And I know how important this police reform draft is, but that she's got so much on her plate and she handles it very well. And she is a great asset to us. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you, Leslie, for the applause, and everybody for the thumbs up. Appreciate it. Sam does, without Sam, we would not have a police reform plan put together right now. So thank you, Sam. Well, if anybody has anything else, if not, we can adjourn and we will have our comment tomorrow period. If anybody would like to join in again, that would be great. And like what I said, if folks have, that can't be part of this or want more time or want another meeting, please reach out to me and we would be totally open to doing something else. So. And then as far as, talking with a meeting with Hark, Julie, you and I can talk offline on that. All right. Thank you all. Appreciate everybody's time again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.